Good evening, Raider fans, and welcome to the Raider Nation podcast. And I'm your host, Raider Greg, with a post-game show for the Miami DOL-FISH versus the Oakland Raiders game. Miami DOL-FISH 33, Oakland Raiders 21. That's it. We lost. We can move on because that was the last chance we had to really make it to the playoffs. So, as our good man Lamont Jordan said on the press conference, they ain't talking playoffs no more. Well, on that note, I don't want to depress the Raider Nation because we've already been through it. If you've lived through the last couple of days like I have, wondering what happened to our team, now is the time to move on. First, I want to give some shouts out to Nils Ackerman. Thank you so much for your contribution to the Raider Nation podcast. We here at the podcast appreciate it very, very much, and will go a long way towards videos and other goodies that we can put onto our site. We thank you so much for your hospitality and the brewskis that you shared with us, and your tri-tip as well. Sean from the RaiderTake, great to see you again at this game. It's always good to see you and your brother as well, like old souls that we've been across paths before. It's great to see good friends in the parking lot at the Raider games at the Coliseum. Raider Dan, this is a shout out to you, brother. Raider Dan's first take here. Nice take for Raider Dan on Kerry Collins' 18-yard rush for the TD. He kind of laughed. We'll take it. Too little, too late for this team to do anything. And as the game wound down, we all knew what was going to happen, probably by the middle of the third quarter. Hoping and wishing wasn't happening for the Raider Nation that day. Okay, on today's show, we will have who will be king, the next coach of the Oakland Raiders. With no doubt, Norv Turner is on his way out. With this last loss, I believe it is the final nail in Norv's coffin. We can ship it to him, and he can climb on into it, and that should be the end of it for him at the end of the season, because Al Davis does not get rid of coaches, except for Shanahan. He does not get rid of coaches in the middle of the season. Okay, we'll be looking at the bright side of the loss yesterday, or on Sunday. And, of course, this article here, Rob Ryan, I am so sorry. That's from me. Dolphins, of course, game. We're going to go over that right now. The Dolphins game. And, I was going to go into it and dissect it and go into it. But you know what? It's an ugly game. It was so ugly that I looked at it and I wrote down some notes on my podcast. And you know what? Screw it. I'm not going to go into it because the Raider Nation who saw this game understands exactly what happened. We sucked. We came out flat and stayed flat for all four quarters and fell flat on our ass. And that sums up the whole game. But looking at different articles and reading the different takes of people, I thought maybe you'd get a kick at some of just the titles of the articles would kind of sum up the game. So I'm going to go into that, and maybe you can get a chuckle or a little smile out of it. The Bay Area media could hardly wait to hit the keys on this game. They were just drooling. And before the Seagulls got a chance to come down to the Coliseum and eat their just desserts after this game, the columnists were on it. They were typing on their keys until they got calluses on them, I'm sure of it. Because the sounds of some of these articles, you wouldn't believe the things that are being said. But before I even get started, please, no Mariucci. We don't want Steve Mariucci here as a coach. Please, Al, I'm just begging you. This came on a tirade. I'm going to go on it right now. He was fired from the Lions on Monday, and we don't want him. We don't need another wishy-washy yes man here in Oakland. It's been proven before, and I'll go over it when I'll talk about the article about who will be king. Excuse me. So they took their shots. They made their plays. They did their thing, the columnists of the Bay Area. And let's just take a look at what is being said about the Raiders in their last game. Okay, here's an article here. Raiders Turner, always on the hot seat. Need I say more? I've already talked about Turner. Okay, here's another one. Moss, a troubled talent. Well, anytime that there's a losing season, your star players always have trouble because they don't understand what happened because they're contenders. And they're athletes that are, they're ready to win. And when you don't win, things happen. Okay, here's another article. Collins leads ugly effort. Well, enough said about that. Do you need to read the article? I don't think so. Okay, here's another one. Collins feels Miami Heat. That's for sure. He felt the heat all day. Couldn't get rid of the ball. Got sacked 7 times. Boy, talk about holding on to the rock. Raiders of Lost Cause stink it up. Boy, that was another great article. They could hardly wait to go. Let's see, what's another one here? Raiders handled by lowly Dolphins. Yeah, of course so. We thought that they were going to come out there high on the hog, and we left losing. Another article, Black Hole fades. Well, there you go. Lost Raiders need new QB. There was another article. All these are just telling it like it is, Raider fans, as you well know. I don't need to read the articles or even summarize the articles. Just listen to the titles. They tell you the whole thing. And there was one article in all these articles I had to share with you. Collins shows signs of mobility. It had a hint of positiveness, so I had to read it. And sure enough, it was talking about how Kerry Collins found his mobility like he did when he was younger. Give me a break. The Collins experiment is dead. Yes, the Collins experiment is dead. And with that, that's all I'm going to tell you about the summary of that game, because it's over and we're going to San Diego. Now, let's look at the bright side. The bright side of this loss to the Dolphins would be perhaps they'll play Walter in a few series for the rest of the season and some of the games that we're about to see and about to play. I think that Walter should have an opportunity to show his talents, because I don't believe Kerry Collins is the answer. I don't think Al thinks so either. It'll be nice to see Walter play a couple of rounds. Let's see if he can light this team up. He has great talent there, and if we can keep him from getting hurt, which I believe we can, give the kid an opportunity to showcase his talents, at least develop them for the next season. Even if he's going to be a backup, he needs to get some on-time experience on the field. This leads me to Tui Asasopo. Tui, we can't play Tui this next game, because if we do, we got to pay him his whole contract. So if we hold on to him till the next game after this, perhaps they'll throw him in and see what he can do against this offense. With this offense, and see what he can do. Maybe he's going to come back and be number one. Who knows? We got to give him an opportunity. But he can play. He's played before. He's played in the real deal, and let's give him a shot. The good things, of course, on the bright side, we're going to get a new coach. I do not believe with all my heart that Al Davis will take another year of the mealy-mouthed Mr. Rogers, Norv Turner. Also, a new quarterback. I don't believe the experiment for Kerry Collins' experiment has gone the way it's supposed to go. I call it the Jeff George experiment number 2, because that's what he reminds me of. Great arm with no head. Now let's look at the team and what we could get in the draft and what we might need in the draft. Now, we saw a desperate lack of pass rush in the Dolphins game because Warren Sapp was missing. What a huge thing we were spoiled with. What a huge thing. Warren Sapp made a great impression on all those other teams he played, and he had no impression in the front four in this particular game. Not a fault of Rob Ryan, just the players that he has. So we need to hire some good linemen for the defense, defensive tackles, some pushers, some big guys, some real playmakers on the defensive line, because that is a huge part of the defense, as we have seen after this last terrible loss. Linebackers, we've needed them since the beginning of the year. We still need them to contain those tight ends that always burn us underneath or in the flats as well. Even though Kirk Morrison's doing a good job, Danny Clark's doing okay too, we need linebackers. We need linebackers still. Okay, now we're in a good place for 06. We're in a good place because we have a core group of players that are going to stay with the team, and we'll add to them on this next off season. So we're going to go into next season, 06, with a stronger team and with, of course, I hope, the needed leadership this team has needed from the very beginning of the Norv Turner era. We need a good coach that kicks ass. Excuse my language, but that's just the way it has to be. Now, we should get a good draft this year because our play is not going to be great. We should be able to go in the draft and pull some great names out of there. Plus, some free agents should be around. I know we're $30 million over the salary cap. However, on the bright side, we'll lose Kerry Collins. That's $12 million you can take right off the top of that 30. And with the acquisition of with the exit of a couple of players, I think Warren Sapp might be out too, unfortunately, just because of his injury and his age. A couple of more players like that, and we'll have that $30 million whittled down in no time, which leaves us the core group, like I said, which is on the bright side. Now, we could be a great contending team next season. We could be a great contending team with a new coach and a new quarterback alone, period. Just those two things could solve 85% of the problems of the Oakland Raiders right now, because I feel that the lack of leadership from the quarterback and the coach is a huge factor in the losses we've suffered, and including and up to this last game right here. Okay, now, who will be king? Now, who will be the next coach of the Oakland Raiders? I've been looking all over, and I've been looking at all the sites. Like I said before, we don't need Steve Mariucci. He's another wishy-washy kind of soft and feely kind of coach that we don't want in the silver and black. Fans want Norv out right now. The fans are calling for his head. They're calling for him to be fired. But Al Davis is a businessman, and Al Davis does not fire people like that. He makes them work the rest of the season because he's paying him. And Al Davis does exactly that. He'll make Norv Turner work the rest of his contract of this season out, and when it's done, he's done. There's no reason for Al to cut Norv Turner right now because he'll have to pay him anyway. So let the guy stay for the rest of the season. Ain't going to hurt us. Certainly not going to hurt the Raiders. But he will definitely be gone by the end of the season. That's how Norv does it. Al does it. Now, since Norv will be done, who will be the next king of the Oakland Raiders? Herm Edwards? Billick? Haslett? There's a lot of names floating around there, and they're all pretty good names. With the exception of Mariucci, Mike Marks, I'm not real happy about him. I'm not real savvy on him. However, he's also in the mix. Now, let's just take a look here. The best coaches in the NFL are not yes men. They are guys who coach, and they coach on their own terms. Okay? Look at Parcells. Look at Gruden. Dungy. All these coaches are their own man, and they do their thing without influence from the upside or atop, Al Davis. Yes, I'll even have to say it, even though it chokes me to say it. Shanahan, as much as I hate to say it, was one of those great coaches that shows right now he's a great coach. He was our coach. But the reason he left was because the team had lost confidence in him, and Al Davis lost confidence in him because he fought back. Now, I will have to say that the coaching issue is something that is scaring me a lot. Because of the way Al usually chooses his coaches, he usually gets yes guys. And with the exception of Gruden, our last good coach, he has had plenty of yes guys that have done a bad job. They aren't worth a shit in this league. Anybody who's a mealy-mouthed, wishy-washy coach doesn't go anywhere. You cannot expect an NFL player to respect someone that has no backbone, that has no fierceness behind his words, that has no consequences to the actions of the players or himself, and holds himself accountable. Because with Norv Turner, no one is accountable. With Norv Turner, we're all getting better. We have to look at the film, and we'll work on the things that we do best. That has been his mantra throughout this season. I, for one, as a Raider fan, am sick and tired of we will work on what we do best, because obviously it's not working. Norv, you're fired. Jimmy Ray, you're fired. And this leads me to the last guy, Rob Ryan. I'm so sorry. At the start of last season, or this season, I was still reeling from the defensive debacle of the season previous. Fans throughout last season were pissed at Rob Ryan because of the lack of ability of the defense. And his defenses were brutally bad. I must say that first year was a learning curve that he fell desperately short of. But I will say, after the Patriots game, when they were calling for Ryan's head, and I being one of them the same way because I thought the defense didn't play very well, Rob Ryan was the only light at the end of the tunnel. As we watched and waited for our 35-point-per-game offense to start going, the defense crept up behind anyone's noticing and took over the limelight. Ryan went from a dismal season to the only light in the tunnel. He made players play beyond their capability, which is what a coach is supposed to do. He got the best mileage out of these guys he possibly could, and it showed in their play on Sundays. From a defense ranked last in the NFL at the beginning of the 2005 season, the Grizzly Bear, as called by the RaiderTake Sean, RaiderTake.com, he's got some great takes on Rob Ryan, has risen to command respect and earned his place with the Silver and Black. I think he's the hero of this season. I think he's the only hero of the 2005 season. I think if we had someone to vote as most productive player of the year, I would have to say Rob Ryan as coach has produced more than any particular player on our team. He's produced more by taking what he had and making the best out of it. Imagine what our defense would have been like with some awesome players. With Coach Rob Ryan in this hot seat, I think that he's not in the hot seat. I think Rob Ryan should definitely not be afraid of his job, and if Al gets rid of him, it would be a sore mistake. Rob Ryan has been the only light in the end of the tunnel and should continue to be so for the next, at least, forthcoming season. Well, Raider fans, that's about it. That's about all I got to say. You who were there at the game, I was with you, and we will have to move on to the San Diego Chargers, who shellacked us harsh at home. But stranger things have happened. We have been spoilers in the past, so it's not all over yet. Everyone's looking to keep their job, and perhaps Kerry Collins will drink a little more and, have a little cocktail beverages and loosen up some and start to perform. Although that does scare me because I don't want him to be around anymore, and it would just be his luck to come out and start playing an awesome game now that the season is over. I hope that his number has been called and they send him on his merry way. Okay, on that, I thank everyone for listening to the Raider Nation Podcast. Thank you so much. Please visit my site at www.RaiderNationPodcast.com and vote Podcast Alley because Charger Ray is still ahead of us for the San Diego Bolts. And he continues to be ahead of us. I don't know why, because he must be calling his relatives. Every time I get votes that are just close 2 or 3 shy from him, he must call his cousins and second cousins, and boy, they shoot up right away. So try to get those votes in. That'll help us out. At least I'd like to be ahead of him on the podcast. Well, we'll be playing in San Diego, and I'll give you that pregame show this week, Raider fans, so don't be down in the dumps. We got things coming on the horizon. The team we have is a great team. Next year, we could go right to the playoffs. You guys play with each other for a whole season, and it could be good. So let's not be negative. Let's be positive. I am positive the Raiders will be back. This is Raider Greg, and I am out.